Welcome to the finals of the Metagame Masters. The finals played by Karl Florian and Hendrik. I'm here with Toffel.
Hello.
And yeah, we're going to do the coverage for the game as well. We already had really exciting games in the quarter and semifinals.
Yeah, they shaped out really interestingly.
Yeah, and we have a lot of different archetypes in the top 8. And now we see a Reanimator, which got a huge buff from the last Unban season, because we have now Entomb and Imperial Seal in the format. Two cards which really benefit this kind of deck, because it's a really strong deck and was a strong deck in the past, but now has tools to find the right creature in the graveyard, or get the turn 2 Oath, or get your turn 2 Reanimate spell, or whatever with those cards. While it's facing the mono green red deck from Hendrik, which is an unusual deck as well. And yeah.
So when you say Reanimator, what's the creature it's using?
What do you mean? Like what kind of creatures he plays? Or?
Yeah, like which creatures do you want to reanimate? It's not like you go as a legacy reanimator where you have Griselbrands and then you're done. Like you have to settle for worse creatures.
Yeah, I think what most people do is like they have a toolbox, right? They have their Iona for the mono red matchup, they have their Elishnorn against the elf decks, they have their Griselbrand against the control, and so on and so forth. And we see in Florian's list like Ashen Raider, Imperial Archangel, Griselbrand, Inferno Titan, Inkwell Leviathan, Jin Gitaxias, probably the best creature you can reanimate in the early turns, no matter what deck you play. Then we have something like Sphinx of the Steelwind, Resolute Archangel, which is another tool creature, for instance, Terrastodon, and of course the Trenchgorger, which maybe some people who watched the last coverage of the last MGM remember. This guy which removes all lands from the decks, or as many lands as you want, and is as strong as you removed lands, and has Trample, which is really nice if you have haste, which is the case because the deck also plays Anger, for instance.
So you say instead of finding like a specific target, it just goes with a lot of targets and hopes that...
Exactly, but that was true for the past, right? Now we have Entomb, and that makes it way more easier to find the specific creature you want. And also with Imperial Seal, for instance, you can look for the card you want and then discard it later with careful studies of Faceless Looting or Izzet Charm or whatever else you play as looting cards. So the deck get way more, I wouldn't say consistent, but way more stable in a sense that you now decide what creature goes into the graveyard. While in the past you were kind of to the mercy of your deck.
Okay, so reanimating wasn't the problem was reanimating the right thing.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, sometimes, of course, having a turn 2 or turn 3 Woodfall Primus is a good thing, for instance, or an Ashen Rider. But then the Swords to Plowshares came, and then that's it. So you are done because you spend a lot of resources to get that creature in the play. But now you can get the creature you want against the deck, which also wants Swords to Plowshares. And the problem, or the main advantage Reanimator has, the interaction you need against this deck is really specific, right? You need something like Scavenging Ooth, like Deathwatch Shaman, Phyrexian Phones, those kind of cards.
And or something that kills big creatures.
Or like that, but the problem is most creatures have an immediate impact.
Yes, exactly.
Griselbrand or Jin Gitaxias even, or like the Woodfall Primus. So that's really hard, even if you have the removal spell, it doesn't help you all the time. And of course the deck plays counter spells, so there's that, and also hand disruption. So yeah, the problem is, even if you play those hate cards, let's call them hate cards, even though they are not technically hate cards, because people play Deathwatch and Scavenging Ooze because they're good and not because they have this hate factor built in.
Yeah.
You have to have them really fast, really quick against this deck. That's the problem. Even if you have them in the deck, you need them on the right time.
Yeah.
And the Reanimator deck is really, really, really fast, while being able to play the long game as well. We saw the last Reanimator in the last MGM in the finals was more on the controlish side with a loam plan and even Tespin stage Dark Depths, for instance. Karl Florian is not playing that. He's just going for the big fat creatures. And maybe while we are looking at the hands get shuffled again and again in the library, I can tell you a story. I lost against Kaplo in the last round.
Ooh.
And I lost against the turn 1 Reanimate, and it was going like land, Dark Ritual, Thoughtseize on himself, discarding Jin Gitaxias, and getting a Reanimate on it. Oh, no, not a Reanimate. No, it was a Lotus Petal and then an Animate Dead. So
yes.
He was Reanimating a Jin Gitaxias turn 1 against me. So
and you're not capable of defending against
that. I had a really awesome hand. I had counter spells and everything, but not a turn 1 removal, not a Caracas.
Just slow, yeah.
Just slow, and he even forget his draw 7, but of course I had to discard my hand after turn 1, so that was that. And yeah, that was really tough. But that's not the usual way it goes. So we now see Florian going to 5 even, and Hendrik going to 5 as well.
Well, when you play Reanimator, since you're looking for a specific goal, it's not that unusual that you mulligan a lot, right? Because
yeah, that's true.
You're trying to assemble a few cards in combination, and once you only have fatties or reanimation spells, that's not what you want. So since your deck only wants to have specific cards, it actually mulligans very well, because once you have those cards, you're very happy with.
Yeah, I think that's one of the decks in the format which can mulligan to 5 or 4 and still have a good shot, or like a better shot than most decks do. And we saw that in the last coverage as well. We saw Dalibor going to 5, and he was close to winning. I think because of a misplay he didn't, but was really close.
Yes.
And yeah, that's exactly the reason. Would you say, I mean, it's more or less a combo deck, right? The Reanimator?
Yes, of course. Only that the combo is not like killing your opponent and therefore not using a lot of cards, but just a combo in order to win the game after a certain amount of time.
Yeah.
Of course, if you reanimate Griselbrand very early, that's working almost every time, because your backup plan is drawing 7 cards.
What's interesting, I'm seeing through the deck list from Florian right now, he's also playing Tazigor and Titania. So those are 2 creatures with more like a mid-range plan, and even a Jace, like the 2 mana Jace, in combination with the Oath of Druids. So he's saying, I need the looting from this creature, and sometimes I will oath into it, but I don't care. So that's interesting.
I mean, oathing into Jace is not the worst, right?
Depends when it happens. If you're like under pressure turn 5 and then you get a Jace, I don't like that oath.
Of course, but like, imagine you cast oath like the most percentage of the time on turn 2.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
Like if you don't look for it, like if you just draw it, then
yeah, I guess. I mean, oathing in Tazigor feels even worse, I guess, than into Jace, I have to say.
Yeah, that seems correct.
I would play something else for the mid-range matchups besides Tazigor.
So I'm not sure what. That keeps a hand on 5 as well as.
Yeah, that's actually a good 5. Like we have Personal Tutor for the Reanimate, and we have a Careful Study, and he finds 2 big creatures with the Careful Studies. That's really huge.
One of them extremely potent against the mono green ramp deck.
Extremely potent, yeah. Like having this Woodfall Primes early on. Like first of all, Henry can't interact with big creatures that well, and it's also denying a land when he went to mulligan of 5. So really strong. I'm not sure if you play the Careful Study turn 1 though, because you have the Personal Tutor, which means you can get your Reanimate if you draw the big creature.
Yes.
Get your Reanimate, play the Careful Study, play the Reanimate. So I'm not sure if you need to be that.
But maybe he wanted to be just a bit more flexible. Like if there was no big creature, you could still look for a card drawing spell.
Yeah, right. And I mean, he had only lands in hand, so maybe it doesn't matter. Yeah, there he gets the Exhume, which is, by the way, that's a very interesting card, because even if your opponent has something like a Scavenging Ooze or Deathrite Shaman, let's say he played a turn 1, yeah? Let's assume you have turn 1, the answer against your opponent's strategy. And Exhume, in this case, or in this scenario, in this instance, still neglect that, or play wanted card, because you don't have to target. You just put a creature into play, and your opponent has to can get one card out of the grave, but the other card will come into play, and that's it's really strong, really interesting card. And with interesting, I mean broken. So, speaking of broken, we see a 3 Wizards, which spiked recently to €80 or something.
Really? This
It's
version?
ridiculous. Yeah.
Wow.
That's the only version. There's no other version.
Well, it is because you want to have so much redundancy in your cards. 3 Wizards is a card you want to play because it also puts it into play untapped.
Yeah.
And that's such a rare effect for 2 mana, so...
Exactly, and especially in the form. I remember back in the day, I even played 3 Wizards in Nature's Law in my Oath Control because it's such a good card. It costs you 1 mana and gets you any forest. So, yeah. It's actually quite surprising. It's not seen more often. So, now we see the Axiom turn 3, which is really,
Yeah, what is the plan now? Because this is huge.
It's really huge, yeah. I mean, as Hendrik, I guess you can find something like a channel and play your Carnage Titan. No, that doesn't work. It needs 2 green. So, yeah, I don't know. Maybe a Khan or something.
I mean, there is some decent ramping going on. Now this is Kodama's Reach, and then there will be Cultivate. You only take 6 damage. This is not the most threatening giant dude because it doesn't draw any cards. It doesn't do anything besides this 1 land. So if you resolve your big threat, you might be at 2 life, but there's still something to be done.
And being on 2 or on 18 against the Reanimator is pretty much irrelevant. So he has some time to find his answer.
Exactly.
I mean, I guess Florian plays Anger, so being on 2 is maybe a bit important, but yeah.
So Hendrik needs to find something that's dealing with the Woodfall Primus indefinitely. Like Carnage Tyrant can block once, then it dies, and it even makes the Woodfall Primus come back and destroy another land.
Yeah, true.
So something around the edge of maybe the Bellower that looks for another different card, maybe a Titania, something that's better in most cases. We see Fro and Patia just drawing a land, so there is still room, there is hope if nothing happens.
And that's, by the way, exactly this kind of old Reanimator we were talking about earlier. Like having the random creatures getting in your graveyard and giving your opponent enough time to find some kind of answer. By the way, we see, I have to mention this, we see the Art Store's Gateway, or Art Source, and of course Henry put it in his deck after I told him he should play that.
Yes.
And especially, I was talking about this card in our last coverage, and I think Mono Green Ramp is a perfect example which can make use out of this card. Not because of the flipping, but because of the looting, of course.
Yeah, you're saying that this is a neat way of generating or at least filtering your cards to the extent that you find something that you need.
Yeah, in a deck which doesn't have much library manipulation besides of Oath of Issa and Sylvan Library and maybe Scrollwag.
And it's not that bad against control decks, right? The backside, if your hand is full of expensive cards, which you expect to be countered, this is not a bad plan to flip it and then make 20 mana.
Yeah, and also thinking about it, Kodama's Reach, for instance, suddenly draws you a card.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, so
because you're going to have a lot of lands in your hand anyway, and there's other cards that fill your hand, like Tracker and stuff. So you will have excess lands that you cannot play. If you have a Cursor in play, you will play cards from the top of your library rather than your hand.
Yeah. Okay, now we see the Carnage Tyrant, I guess. Just blocking. He doesn't need to block now, but...
Well, he probably does. I mean, the Woodfall Primus is taking away the gateway. Then.
That's why I don't want to block. I think.
Yeah. I think blocking is a bit risky because you're going to do. There's something happening. There are effects that can do something, but
I mean, the best thing Florian can have is a Liliana after that, like punishing you for that.
But I guess you have to take chances and say, okay, we'll go to 2. Maybe we draw something. We can still block next turn if that's
Yeah, I think
happens.
you are not winning a game with the mulligan on 5, your opponent reanimating something big on turn 3 without taking chances. So
Yes, exactly.
I think he should go that route. It's interesting ponder now, right? We see a Tazigor Thoughtseize. I think we both can agree that Thoughtseize is nothing worth.
Yes,
Because it doesn't do anything.
The opponent probably doesn't have anything relevant.
Yeah,
So.
he would have played it. So I'm fine here with taking Tazigor, and then next turn he can fetch Thoughtseize away. So yeah, I like the Tazigor at this spot. And that's a really neat spot for Tazigor in this deck. Like usually you would think that's not that great of card, but at this spot I like it.
Considering that you are discarding cards as your main game plan,
yeah, I
this
guess
is a nice road blocker.
Yeah, I guess, yeah. I'm not saying it's wrong to play it. I'm just not a huge fan of it.
And here it actually makes quite a difference because it attacks next turn.
Yeah, that's true. Okay, let's see what Hendrik is able to find. Maybe an Ugin or something?
Wasteland, not
an Ugin.
Particularly interesting. Okay, spin the wheel. Let's hope we find something. That's Elfish Mystic, which is enough.
Yeah, it can block. I mean, that's something.
We're not dead.
I don't hate the Wasteland as well because you can, get rid of 1 mana for the Tazigor activation.
I would still exile something.
Yeah, he didn't exile something.
Yeah, very good.
I mean, the card is good, but not that good.
Oh, that would be something.
Well, you can never flip it then, but that's not a problem, I would say. So, can you imagine? I mean, it's not that crazy to think that they in 2 years print the artifact which just draws you a card for 1.
No, that's ridiculous. that will not happen.
We see. Okay, so Wasteland. And go, yeah. How much money does Hendrik have? 7. So, okay.
This goes away. Card Florian draws a card, which is going to be a Bloodstained Mire, enabling access to red mana.
Yeah, which is really cool. Oh, does he just win if he plays Izzet Charm on the elf?
Yes.
Yeah.
So he sees that.
Oh, he's a good player. He's seeing that. Getting rid of the charm blocker. Okay. So, I mean, for a mulligan of 5 on both sides, it was actually a game. What happened here?
Yeah, Karl Florian was very fortunate to get a reanimation target and a reanimation spell in that time.
Yeah.
Hendrik was a bit mana heavy, but there was still something going on. Like this was a real game. It was not like somebody did nothing. There was still draw steps to fade, and we can expect something very interesting for the next game because people. When Hendrik does his stuff, it's very dangerous as well as Karl Florian Platt. I guess the upper hand is a bit on Karl Florian since he has the potential to go turn 2, 3 very quickly and it just ending the game right there.
But we saw Hendrik having the potential as well with City of Traitors, Grim Monolith, and Channel.
Exactly.
Yeah.
All right, let's watch it.